Hello viewers. Today we are going to talk about the resource discovery, open access to resources and data. What is that we are looking at? We need to actually create future knowledge trends that are smart enough to help users to identify the requisite resources for doing a good piece of research. In this session, we'll talk about how do we build the thread for responsible research and innovation. We'll also talk about the resource discovery, that how do we go about identifying relevant resources. We talk about the open access resources and open data and define that what does open access to resources and access to open data means. We'll also talk about the open access and open data, how do we navigate through myriad resources that are available to us. And finally, we'll set a forum to promote a scientific rather than subjective approach to summarizing what is known. Therefore, when we build the thread for going through the knowledge landscape, in this knowledge landscape we talk about the information, which is the basic ingredient for the research, and we say that information is the driver of innovation. If information is driver of innovation, then I say that the open access is the driving force, because it is this open access to resources that bridges the yawning gap between information haves and information have-nots, and ensures a universal platform for universal access to the global information, and thereby responding to the demands of scholarship in the digital age. Now, let's build a thread in the research. When we talk about the research process, that encompasses formulating research problem to writing research report. Now, in this entire process of formulating research problem to writing research report, we need literature. And this literature is the fulcrum for a good piece of research. This is the basic ingredient, and the efficiency with which you have carried out your literature search and written the literature review is demonstrated in your research endeavor. A good research is good because it has a solid basis of the literature review. It has reviewed what has already been done. Now, the role and purpose of literature review is therefore a necessary core. Now, let's have a look at the reasons for reviewing the literature. One, it brings the clarity and you can focus on the research problem. You can improve your research methodology. You can also broaden your knowledge base in your research area. Now, when you look at the research trends, requirements and challenges, the first we need to look at the diversification of the resources that we have. The open access publishing that has added to this myriad of information resources that are available to us. And finally, I call it information obesity, not because there are colossal information available to us, but just because either we do not know what are the mechanisms of sieving the requisite information from this colossal information, or we do not have the adequate mechanisms of sieving the resources, information resources. That's why I called it information obesity. Now, in this research information explosion, the research volume continues to increase, and you, as the users and providers of the information, are the center of this information explosion. Now, what kind of resources we see? We see structured, unstructured, semi-structured resources. We also see resources that are generated and available on public domain, in open access, or they are embedded in deep web, what we call as deep web, which are hidden behind a password, or we also have resources based out of the social networking tools, which we call Web 2.0, or also in the library arena we call it Library 2.0. Now, what is the challenge with us is how do we identify, separate, organize the information and place in a meaningful pattern. So, 90% of this information is unstructured or semi-structured or hidden behind a password. So, that is the real challenge. Now, we need to follow certain search strategies. When we look at the search strategies, we need to have robust systems, strategies and systems that could promote discovery, that could provide one-stop shop access for information resources. Therefore, we have to simplify the research process with a single search, provide more intuitive searches, and also facilitate the user or information seeker to undergo the pain of complex searches. So, what do we do? For this resource discovery, we need to use certain discovery tools. Now, users, let's have a look at those discovery tools. There are three approaches: the library, search engine, and gateways or subject repositories. Now, many of us know that library catalog is the earliest discovery service because it used to help users to find a resource in the library, whether it is available in a library or it's not available in a library, then where I can find that book. Now, libraries foster unified search across e-resources. That's what many libraries have already done. Now, the search strategies, when we come to these search strategies, now let's take a, just discuss it this way, that when we have a problem, what do? Most of us Google our problem, and that is, many times it happens to the users, the visitors to the library, they Google their problem. But while you are Googling your problem, you have two strategies. One is syntactical search, where you give some sort of keyword and you get the search, maybe 100,000 references you get in 0.03 minutes. And the second is the semantical search, which is based on the semantic web, or we also call it living knowledge, where the smart agents actually take your request and based on this, it's a concept based search rather than the syntactical based search. The search strategy has also graduated from mere gathering, that is a simple search when you just give your keywords and you get the records, to harvesting, like Google Scholar, you can harvest your records, and federated search, which facilitates access across discrete databases and repositories through one search, irrespective of how diversified those resources are, how discrete those resources are, and they could come from different databases. Now, the search and retrieval is not only limited to the text, but also multimedia. You could have searches based on the pattern recognition. The algorithms have really matured to that level. Now, how do you find the resources? Open access or open data resources. You need to be aware of what kind of databases exist. How do I use e-journals? How do I use open access journals? What databases are available? Where are the web resources that I can find? And if you do not find directly the resources that you require for a given piece of research, you need to have an alternative strategy in mind. Now, for the research, there is the support. The research support system has got three components that all of you know, and I am going to reiterate here. One is the author, who creates and collaborates. Number two is the instructor, who rapidly builds and shares custom collections. And third are the learners, who find and explore the content. Now, in this research landscape cycle, therefore, we as the librarians and information scientists, we need to create the environment in which open access will become the norm for distributing research, if you really want to foster the research culture in your institutions. Because the concept of openness has been spreading its wings far and wide, popularity of open source is highest amongst academia due to underlying philosophy based on sharing. Therefore, we need to sustain and nurture through a sustained cycle of human resources and efforts to help it continue what it has been able to do so far. Now, talking about the e-resources, because most of these open access resources when we talk about is in the electronic format. There are various forms and formats of this. We talk about the e-books, we talk about e-thesis and dissertations, we talk about e-print archives, digital repositories, we talk about open education resources, we talk about search engines, forums, blogs and things like that. We talk about the databases and directories, we talk about the e-journals. There are myriad of these resources, and most of these resources we can categorize in two forms so far as the procurement or having access to those resources are concerned. One is the licensed, purchasing through license, and second is the open access resources. Now, for the licensed resources, the libraries have been doing this umpteen number of decades, rather centuries. They have been licensing to the, in the print format they have been procuring through subscription. In the e-version they have been licensed the resources for the past over 3 decades now. But open access resources, I am going to focus more here on the open access resources and the both open access databases, text, resources, journals and things like, and the ones that is called as the open data. Now, when we talk about the open access, what is this open access is? There could be open files, there could be open data, but the premise is they are based on something which is, they are stringently peer reviewed resources available in the public domain. Now, when we talk about the open files, we are talking about open access resources. There could be two, particularly the journal resources. There are two schools of thought. One is the open journal school and another is the self-archiving school. When we talk about the journal school, we are talking about the open access journals, where the journals are published in the open access platform. Somebody pays for it, but to the end user it is free. And when we talk about the self-archiving, it is nothing just to create institutional repositories. You publish in the commercial or journals, but you also store a copy of this in your institutional archives. Therefore, open is legally open, where you have immediate full text online access with unlimited or no copyright restrictions. Similarly, when you talk about the open data, it is also legally open. It is a data, you can use it freely, reuse it, redistribute it. It is use it for commercial and non-commercial purposes. It may require that you attribute the publisher based on some attribution license that we will talk about shortly for now. There are a number of the formal definition is Budapest definition, and you can access it on www.soros.org/open access. Now, openness is a transformative value. There are 3 pillars of this openness. One is the open files and data, open licensing and open collaboration. And I am going to talk about these while giving you some typical examples of these 3 pillars. Now, when we talk about promoting open access, there have been number of initiatives. Okay, there are statements and declarations, and you could just see it on your screen. Berlin Declaration is there, Batista statement is, Budapest Open Access Declaration is there, OECD final communique is there, and I must share with you that India was the first country outside of Germany to sign the Berlin Declaration, and INSA was the main pillar behind it to sign the Berlin Declaration. And it was on this, after signing the Berlin Declaration, that we started in a very, very streamlined fashion to promote open access to the resources. The 3 academies took the initiative. INSA converted it to journal and facilitated an open access platform. Indian Academy of Sciences did the same thing, and today INSA has, from volume 1 issue 1, all its journals that it brings out in the open access platform, and that is because of the being signatory to the Berlin Declaration. Now, there are a number of organizations that are supporting open access movement. You could just see on your screen what are there a number of, some of them I have already given here, but there are many more. You could just see at the bottom, you will see there is a URL given. You can have many more countries who are actually organizations, various organizations in different countries supporting open access to resources. Now, many funding agencies are promoting open access to resources and also to open data, because the projects that these funding agencies fund, it is mandatory for these principal investigators to put all data and all information in the public domain, and for the organizations who are being funded by the funding agencies, they have to put all research in the public domain. So, there are a number of funding agencies. You could just see Indian funding agencies, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Department of Biotechnology, Department of Science and Technology, and things like that, and also international funding agencies that are promoting open access to resources. Number of policies have cropped up, and it is because of these policies that which has further boosted the open access culture to research resources. India has a open access policy. In India's DST and DBT open access policy is there, the Canada has, Europe and UK has, Ireland has, US has. In fact, all developing countries have, and all research oriented countries have open access policies now. Now, the curriculum is also placed in the public domain. Now, besides the open access policies to resources, the open files, there are open data policies as well. For instance, number of governments have come out with open data policies because they recognized and realized and also have appreciated the availability of the data in the public domain for creating new knowledge, for facilitating creation of the new knowledge and bringing innovation to the existing literature that is known. Okay. So, they have come out with open government data policies, and you could just see some of the countries that are listed here. There are many more in the world that are listed here. Government of India has also come out with National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy, and it is available at dst.gov.in/national-data-sharing-and-accessibility policy. You could just have a look at this policy, which has facilitated creation of the national data portals being facilitated and created and implemented and executed by National Informatics Center, Government of India. Now, there are various routes and roads to open access. The open access routes are two. One is the gold route and another is the green route. When we call the gold route, it is you authors publish in open access journals that make their articles freely accessible online immediately upon publication. They are peer reviewed journals. They, depending on the model, authors may have to pay publisher a fee to publish. Now, nothing comes for free. You know, there are different models for this gold access routes, which is author published in the open access journal. For instance, this PLOS Science is, they are all they follow the gold route. They are open access journals where author pays for publishing the article, but to the end user it is free. There is another route is the green route, where authors publish in a subscription journal, but they also deposit their copy in the institutional repository, which is freely accessible to their users. Now, initially it was very difficult to publish while you are publishing your paper in a subscription journal, to keep it in the public domain and so that people can use it, access it freely. But because of the stresses and the promotion of the open access culture globally, publishers have changed colors. They have publisher archiving policies. There are green policy, blue policy, yellow policy, white policy, where green means you can archive preprint and postprint both, blue means you can archive postprint, that is the final draft, postprint open peer review, yellow means you can archive preprint, white means that archiving not formally supported, and things like that. You could just have a look at this, the URL is at the bottom, and you can have look at this for further details from this site about the publishers archiving policies. Now, there are a number of international and national initiatives for open access to research. You could see Sherpa, ROR, Open Door, Roadmap, Romeo, Juliet. Actually, these are various initiatives to facilitate the open access to the peer reviewed resources. And you could also have that what all repositories are available in the world in the open public domain. You can go to Open Door, you could go to ROR, Registry of Open Access Repositories, or Open Door, that is Directory of Open Access Repositories. Now, there are also open access standards and guidelines, and without standards you cannot make a system robust. You could just see from this list that there are so many standards that are available to facilitate open access and create a robust system. Thank you.